morning, 49ers fans. Wake up, wake up. It's Damon and Larry. It's great to have you here for a Friday morning show. Been, I don't know, kind of a middling week of 49ers news, Larry. We got a little bit of news to talk about. We got a little bit of, hey, what could be coming up in this draft to talk about. And we're going to start with the man who's usually going right up the middle. Hey, diddle-diddle, let's talk about George Kittle, who is, without a doubt, a 49ers Hall of Famer. Like, this is one of the most important players in the history of this franchise. He's been fantastic. He is like one chromosome away from being a professional wrestler. The guy is an incredible entertainer. Everything about him is something to be admired and liked, but like all athletes, you know, there is a timeline here. And it was brought up yesterday by, I think, Matt Mayoko, a couple of other guys who look at this team thinking this is the draft where looking for George Kittle's replacement certainly has to begin.
I think it was really started last year, right? I mean, they drafted 2 tight ends last year. I think they would like to have a tight end that, you know, on the roster down the road that could replace George Kittle. And who's it going to be? You know, I'll give you some names later on, but this is another really good draft for tight ends, and I think it's pretty clear that Mayoko said they got to start making some plans, perhaps for life after George Kittle. This was on 49er Talk, on the 49er Talk podcast. He said, I know that's kind of odd to say because it seems like he's just so young and just not too long ago broke into the NFL, but he's now 30. And it just goes to show, Damon, how fast life is in the NFL. And the Niners have looked at Eric All from Iowa. They've looked to Javion Sanders from the University of Texas. I'm hot to trot on a couple guys named Mason Pline out of Furman and Isaac Rex out of BYU. They've looked at those guys. Jaheim Bell, the coach is real fired up on him. He's a Florida State guy. Theo Johnson is got great workout numbers from Penn State. Jared Wiley of TCU. So, yeah, this is an opportunity for them. I think they have to either get a really solid tight end out of this, or they've got to get a veteran tight end and more of a day 3 tight end in this draft, you know, at that spot. But they've got to address it. And I think they will. I absolutely think they will.
I got a name for you if they're going to get aggressive in this draft and take a tight end in their top handful of picks. I got a name for you. I got a day 3 name for you. Obviously, the name Brock Wright was blocked by the Lions from coming to the 49ers. They put in a claim on him. They put an offer in, and the Lions matched it. So, you know, what's the old saying, Larry, that the best time to draft your quarterback is when you don't need one? I mean, I think you can almost apply that to any position. You know, the best time to look for the replacement is before you actually need it. So, you know, depth for the tight end room is something that they need anyway. And if the depth that they add eventually elevates itself to the one line is George Kittle's replacement, that's fantastic. But I don't think it's like a burning emergency right now that they find George Kittle's replacement. They need tight end 2, they need tight end 3 in the room before they need their presumptive replacement for George Kittle. Again, the 49ers cannot get caught serving 2 masters here. I know that they're trying to play steps ahead, and you always want to be thinking a couple of moves down the chessboard. But to me, it's all about 2024. That's it. 2025 doesn't exist. 2026 is a year I definitely can't care about right now. So it's all about 2024 and winning the Super Bowl this year under the last math model that Brock Purdy's contract allows this team to have. Kittle's coming off a 65-catch, 1,000-yard season with 6 touchdowns. In his career now, Larry, like you said, he's been around 8 years. He's played 110 games in his career already for the 49ers. That is 98 regular season games with 12 postseason games attached to that. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler, a 2-time All-Pro, but he turns 31 in October, and obviously, you know, his body, I don't want to say is starting to break down, but he's giving it the office. That guy is so physical. There isn't a tackle he doesn't try to run through. There isn't a block that he's looking to, you know, turn into a pancake. He is He's almost his own worst enemy when it comes to his own health. There's a few guys on this team like that.
Well, I mean, here's the thing about this. They lost Charlie Warner. They ran a lot of 2 tight end sets late in the year. There's a lot of talk about them trading wide receivers. All these things lend themselves to you better have a good second tight end. You don't have Charlie Warner. In fact, you don't really have anybody. And you ran 2 tight ends quite a bit down the stretch. So I think it's safe to say they absolutely need to find not just a guy. They need to find a contributing tight end that they can utilize this year. I've looked at the entire list of tight ends and watched film on, I would say, 15 of them. Brock Bowers, Sanders, Cade Stover, Bell, Theo Johnson, Sanat, all of these guys, Tip Ryman, Eric All, Dallin Holker. I've watched all these guys. The guys that I really like.
You still haven't said the name of my day 3 pick, which makes me worried.
Well, there's 3 interesting guys to me that are down the board. One is Shelton Zion III from UNLV. He doesn't have much production, but he's a tremendous athlete, really long arms, really athletic, 6'3", 250, lots of upside potential there. That's one guy. He's more of a after the draft kind of a guy. Then there's day 3 guys. And the 2 day 3 guys that I like the most in this draft are Mason Pline from Furman, who was a basketball player at Ferris State, got 10.5-inch hands. He's a mechanical engineering major. He's smart. You better be smart. If you're going to play tight end in this offense, you better be smart. This kid is smart. He also has major hops, real athletic. If you watch him, he almost looks like an Aaron Gordon on the break if you watch his Ferris State basketball film. And then he's got 10.5-inch hands. 10.5-inch hands, hell of a receiver, crazy athleticism, an above the rim basketball player, and he's a mechanical engineering major. I'll take a chance on that guy. So Mason Pline is a guy that I really like. But the other guy that I've really come to like after watching the last month or so is Tanner McLaughlin from Arizona. He was a wide receiver. He started as a wide receiver, and when you watch him play, he's from Alberta. When he's 6'5", about 250, and when you watch him play, you can see, you can see the wide receiver, background that he has. So really good player. He started at Southern Utah and then came to Arizona. Really, really like those 2 guys. If they could get Pline or McLaughlin, I'd be really excited as far as a day 3 receiver. But they, even the more I look at Theo Johnson from Penn State, the more I think, wow, Theo Johnson might be, he's 6'6", he's 260. His workout numbers were off the charts. Another guy from Canada, Windsor, Ontario, went to Holy Names Catholic. Really good player. I mean, I don't know what else to say about that. He was a really good player in high school, and he's one of like six brothers in the family, and his brother Dominic played at the University of Buffalo. His father Nate played football and ran track at Hillsdale College. And this guy is, he says he wants to be a coach when he's done playing. I mean, he's that kind of a brainiac, and he's 6'6", 260 with crazy measurables. So those are the guys that I'm kind of honing in on with the draft coming up in 2-3 weeks.
Guy in the chat, Broken Metronome, says, smart. All our tight ends do is ask to be offensive linemen. Yeah, and offensive linemen are usually the smartest guys on the team.
Usually.
Blocking in this run scheme is not for dummies. And that's why Charlie Warner, I think, is going to be a bigger loss than maybe the 49ers were anticipating, because he was fantastic. I mean, there was an awful lot of success that came off of Charlie Warner's blocks and his behind this year. So I think, replacing Kittle with someone who can catch the ball is a big deal, but I think that you need that blocking tight end for sure coming out of this draft. And I got a day 3 guy that I think fits that mold. Again, coming out of a pro-style offense, A.J. Barner, the tight end from Michigan, huge kid. He's 6'6". He did not do much in the passing game, But Jim Harbaugh didn't do that much with his tight ends in the passing game this whole year at Michigan. So I don't think that there's really that much to hold against him. It's just not a scheme that Harbaugh embraced, but he played so much power football, and this guy was in the middle of an awful lot of power football. I think he understands a pro-style running game. If you're playing for Harbaugh, you kind of have to. A.J. Barner, a day 3 tight end out of Michigan, would be my later in the draft option. And the guy that I've watched the most tape on, and I know that the 49ers actually had him into Las Vegas to talk to him during Super Bowl week, but out of K-State, Ben Sinnott. And this is one of the first 3-4 tight ends off the board. So it would have to be, what would a lot of people would call a huge reach at 31, probably a top of the second or third round draft pick is where it would be a little bit make more sense. But if they're really worried about a Kittle level replacement, well, Ben Sinnott out of K-State could be that guy. Lots of catches, lots of production.
Yeah, no, I like both those guys. I mean, Sinnott, I think he's probably going to be, he might be a day 2 guy. He could be in the 3rd round pick, probably more like 4th or 5th, but somebody may fall in love with Sinnott because he really looked good this year. As far as Barner, I think you've settled on a pretty good one there. He was a team captain for the Wolverines. He's a 2-time academic All Big Ten honoree. As I said, you got to be smart to play tight end. There's just a lot of shifts, a lot of movement, a lot of pre-snap. You could kind of see that was the problem for Kamla too, is that he was just thinking too much last year. So if you're going to get somebody as a rookie that you want to step in and make an impact, that guy better be able to, digest the playbook and quickly, right? So yeah, Barner's a good call. You can't go wrong in the Big Ten with, some of these guys, either offensive linemen or tight ends. I just feel like they're well coached. There's some outstanding coaching in the Big Ten. They're challenged. It's a high level of play. They're used to playing in rugged, cold, tough weather. There's just a lot to like about the Big Ten offensive linemen and tight ends. And it seems like annually there's a great selection of guys: Iowa, Michigan, Northwestern, Ohio State. I mean, they just produce, top tier guys. And they're all pretty well coached. They may have a strength, right? Their strength may be their inline blocking. Their strength may be their ability to flex out and match up down the field, but they always seem like they're at least suitable in their weak area. So like, yeah, the guy's a flexed out tight end, but he can hold his own on the line of scrimmage. This guy destroys people on this line of scrimmage, but you know what? He can hold his own if you throw him the ball.
Right, he's got some hands. I think it's harder. It's harder to teach a guy how to block than how to catch, for sure.
I mean, it's interesting because it's totally different skill sets, right? One of them, you got to stand up and block a defensive end who's got unbelievable strength and size and speed. And the others, you better have hand-eye coordination and concentration and route running ability. And, you got to rep it. They're different skill sets, but I think it's safe to say the Niners need to get a tight end. This is kind of an interesting one too. Not a super, but 49er Reefer says get Chase Claypool in free agency and convert him to tight end. Built for speed, solid for the tight end. I don't know what's going on with Chase Claypool. He's working out in Canada.
He's just not a worker, Larry. I mean, the guy just, do you love downhill? The game? Yeah. Do you love the game? His answer is, I think, no.
I think that might be right. And the only reason, and I don't know him, but man, he sure looked good as a rookie, but he has gone down consistently since his rookie year to the point where he's now looking in Canada. Nobody wants him. Claypool, I think, to me, when I saw him, I saw him in a 2-minute drill where the clock's ticking down. I don't know if you remember this game. He was with the Steelers and he gets the ball and they need to get the ball back to the ref so he can place the ball, so he can give it back to the quarterback so they can run the next play. The game's in the balance. And he's doing one of these,
First
first
down.
down, like
Red cash
like
in.
we're in the middle of the second quarter, and he's just, so I kind of wonder either about his team attitude or his just ability to understand game situations.
He doesn't stick around long with any coaching staff, and that's a red flag, right? Moving on from him quickly is what coaching staff seem to want to do. So it's also, I don't think he's got a tight end's body on him either. I don't think Chase Claypool is a guy where you say, go put on 20 pounds in the weight room. Now you're a tight end. I just don't think that's going to happen. But 49er Reefer, we should have been warned by your name alone about where your ideas are coming from. But thank you. Thank you very much for watching. Exactly. I do appreciate that. When it comes to loving football, though, loving to play the sport, this brings us right back to our star of the segment. Because I don't think you're going to find anybody in the NFL who loves playing football as much as George Kittle. And when you talk about all the different attributes that this man possesses as an excellent runner of routes, an excellent, great hands. He can catch you, 100 balls if you gave him that many targets and involved him like that. He could do that for you. 1,000-yard guy, real burst, incredible blocker. He loves football. He loves football like a madman. He loves football in that weird, almost abnormal level of loving football. Like he goes into that Harbaugh crazy man type of territory when it comes to loving football. And that's what makes him so special. I mean, there are some guys who are just natural leaders, and that's George Kittle. The respect that he's been given is universal in the NFL. And that's a hard thing to get. There's always somebody who doesn't like you in this league. You really can't find that person when it comes to George Kittle. Like even the guys he pancake blocks come up sort of like high-fiving him like, oh, you got me, George. They
say you play football. You don't work football. You play football. It's a game. And he never has forgotten that. He's never forgotten that it's a game. And he goes out there with that enthusiasm. I've talked to him about it before. He's like, hey, man, it wasn't that long ago. I was playing high school football for fun, So I just try to remember that, I'm having fun.
Right. He identifies with a high school kid at training camp.
He's just a guy that understands that, you can only play for so long, but you got to play. Unfortunately, I felt bad for him when he, was talking to Karlaftis and Karlaftis fell on a fumble that was behind George's back. I'm sure that's a tough one. That's a tough one to go into the offseason with, especially when you lose the Super Bowl. That was one of the key plays in the game. But he what I love about him is you ask him a question and he looks you in the eye and he gives you his best answer. He doesn't dodge. He doesn't turn it on you. He doesn't get mad. He's not petty. He's a pretty cool, down-to-earth guy, and he's a pretty introspective guy. And if you ask him a good question, he'll give you a good answer. And if you ask him a dumb question, he'll be like, hey, man, that's kind of a dumb question. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then he'll laugh about it. So I kind of like that. I mean, I like a guy who is kind of I think of him as like the ultimate straight shooter.
Yeah, I was about to say, honesty. He's honest in the way he approaches the game. He's honest in the way he commits to the bit of being George Kittle. He's honest in the way that he supports his teammates. He's the perfect football player. I mean, he really is. You want that guy in your locker room 100 out of 100 times. No team in the world gets worse when George Kittle's on that football team.
That's totally true. One other guy that I think we should mention, and I'm doing a video coming up here on the sleepers in the draft. One guy that I think is going to be really interesting to watch how teams evaluate him, Damon, is Johnny Wilson from Florida State, who's 6'6", 230.
Tight end, the end. You got to give me a position there, huh? Johnny Wilson.
Well, he's a wide receiver.
Oh, okay.
But he may be a tight end. I mean, that's kind of the point. His hands are a little inconsistent. He averaged 15 yards per reception though. And he's
240.
Yeah. I mean, 6'6", 230 something, but yeah, I mean, you're talking about a wide receiver at that size. And I don't know that he's going to be able to get enough separation to play wide receiver in the NFL. So he might have to be a guy who kind of switches positions. But man, that would be an intriguing guy as well. I mean, if you could somehow get Johnny Wilson and turn him into kind of a flex tight end, you might have something really, really special. So that's a guy to watch for.
I'm just looking at him. I just Googled his name real quick, and the first thing are the 2 combine records that he set. Wilson officially became the tallest wide receiver to participate in the combine while recording the longest wingspan ever at 84.5 inches of any prospect at his position. Darren Waller held the previous height record at 6'6" in the 2015 combine. So, the guy's a house. There's no doubt about that. He doesn't have to bend over to tie his shoes. Very long arms. He's like a condor.
No, and he could be, he's going to be challenged on the line of scrimmage, right? I mean, he's a wide receiver, so he's going to have to somehow, develop a little bit more strength. But when you look at wide receivers that don't separate in the NFL aren't in the NFL, or they're converting to tight end. And this guy's got an ability to maybe convert to tight end. And when you look at his some of the games that he played this year, he kind of looks like he could be a premier, flexed out tight end. So I'm interested to see, how the NFL kind of looks at Johnny Wilson. He could be a major red zone threat. And if the Niners are looking for, if they're looking for a blocker, then he's probably not your guy. But if they're looking for, 2 tight end, flex him out, throw him the rock.
So like Jimmy Graham?
Johnny Wilson could be a star, I mean, who knows? I mean, he does have some drops. His ball skills are kind of inconsistent, but man, I mean, the talent is there. I mean, you can really see it.
Broken metronome again says, sounds like a physical specimen. I can already see him in Shanahan's doghouse.
Yeah.
Anyways, like and subscribe. Welcome to Wake Up. It's great to have you here. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger, giving you everything you need about the 49ers in a nice compact amount of time that fits well into your day. Whenever you need us, we'll be there for you. Just click play, hit like and subscribe, and thank you very, very much. So look, what can we say about George Kittle? He's going to be very hard to replace, not just as production. He's going to be hard to replace as a leader, as a captain, as someone who's a tone setter. Again, had he been just a little less competitive, he probably would have been a fantastic professional wrestler. But he is competitive enough to want to compete for the highest prize in North American sports, and that's a Super Bowl. And we know he's come close a couple of times here. Can they finally get over the hump this year? They're going to need a second tight end to do it. And that's where this day started, talking about who might be the guy to come in and help Kittle in that tight end room. Now, maybe the guy that you could find to help Kittle in that tight end room could be someone who was a return piece in a potential Brandon Ayuk trade. And Larry, if you're all done on tight ends and Kittles, that's where I think should take the show, because we know that San Francisco, if they are to trade Brandon Ayuk, wants a haul. They want at least a first-round pick and a player. Reportedly, the Jacksonville Jaguars were asked for a first-rounder and Zay Jones, and you-know-who said that was just a little bit too rich for his blood, so he wasn't going to do that. Larry Lowry, not going to do it. But potential suitors are going to have to give up, not only draft capital, but probably a spare part as well. So I was reading in Bleacher Report, again, take any Bleacher Report, here's what we're thinking article with a grain of salt, but they came up with a few different teams, and some options that could actually land that team a shot at Brandon Ayuk. And so let's just start with a division rival, who I think is probably the least likely to be, on the table of doing business with for the 49ers in terms of Brandon Ayuk. You don't want him haunting you twice a year. But the first team up was the Arizona Cardinals, who would get Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers 4th round pick, number 135 this year, And the Niners would get the Cardinals' first rounder and their fifth rounder. Doesn't feel like that would be enough. And it's also a team you don't want to do business with.
I mean, yeah. Do you want to send? I mean, the Cardinals badly need Ayuk. I mean, look at their depth chart. They've got Michael Wilson in year 2 out of Stanford. Greg Dortch, right? Who's Greg Dortch? Chris Moore. I mean, it's Zach Pascal. They don't have any receivers. So you'd be handing, Arizona a receiver. They've already got a really good tight end in Trey McBride. They've got a nice running back in James Conner. It's like, do you really want an improving offensive line? They just signed Jonah Williams to play left tackle. You got Paris Johnson at right. You really want to hand them in the division Ayuk?
No.
I would say no.
But what you're looking for is a dance partner who needs a premier wide receiver. And so I think that's what the rest of this list comes from. And the Cardinals are in that camp. And now all of a sudden, the Buffalo Bills find themselves in that camp after moving on from Stephon Diggs, who, again, you look at the Diggs trade. Now, Diggs has got all sorts of, I don't want to say on-field or off-field issues, but how great of a teammate, how hard he's going to work when he sort of mentally checks out is part of the reason why he got traded, part of the reason why the Bills are moving on. Brandon Ayuk doesn't have any of those red flags on him. But the Buffalo Bills,
I mean, they could fleece Buffalo, you would think, right? I mean, look at Buffalo's receivers. They got Khalil Shakir from Boise.
He's the only guy who's caught a pass from Josh Allen on the roster.
Right. I mean, they're in their Super Bowl window. I think they just got leveraged, in a big way and were forced to move Diggs. But what do they got? They got Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir, and that's it. Mac Hollins. I mean, they're totally naked at wide receiver. And so, I mean, if they call, man, I mean, the price has got to be really high.
I think that the Bills,
you don't want to give them, an advantage either. I mean, they're a Super Bowl contender.
I mean, they are, Larry, but I also think they're removed. I think that in the handful of Super Bowl contenders, you're either trying to get to the front of the line or you're retreating to the back of it. I think the Bills are retreating to the back of that line of Super Bowl contenders more than they're rushing to the front of it.
Well, they're rushing to the front of it if you trade them Ayuk. So that's, I think if they could go from Diggs to Ayuk, I think they will have upgraded. Diggs is a diva. Diggs is 30. Ayuk is 26. Ayuk blocks down the field. Ayuk's blue collar. I mean, his best football's coming. That's why if the price tag's got to be really high for Buffalo.
Well, the Bills would get Brandon Ayuk, and the 49ers would walk away with the Bills' first-round pick, number 28, and a 2025 fourth-rounder. So Bleacher Report saying you're not even going to get 2 picks in this draft for Brandon Ayuk. I don't agree with that. I'm turning that down, too.
Because Buffalo's over a barrel, and you saw Brandon Beane, the general manager, yesterday. He's like, the season hasn't started yet, and we're committed to building this roster out as best we can. And it would have to be a very, very one-sided deal for the Niners to move him to Buffalo, in my mind.
I'd need 2 2024 picks.
Definitely.
Yeah.
High picks.
The Los Angeles Chargers, Brandon Ayuk and a 49ers 6th rounder for a 2024 second rounder, a 2024 fourth rounder, and a 2025 conditional day 2 pick. So 2 picks in the draft, 2nd and a 4th, and a day 2 pick in 2025 for Brandon Ayuk. And you're throwing in your 6th rounder this year to get that deal done. I don't think I like that either.
Yeah, that's not a good deal. The other reason this one is kind of, I don't really entertain this one very, very, the Chargers have, some cap issues. I mean, that are supposedly pretty severe. So I don't know. I would say the Chargers, I don't know. I mean, it shows on the above the cap website that they have $30.6 million in cap room, but with some of their restructures, so maybe they could get it done. But read that trade again.
The Chargers would get Ayuk and the 49ers 6th rounder for a 2024 second, a 2024 fourth, and a 2025 conditional day 2 pick.
That's not awful. Not awful.
I think I would want one more. Since we're putting off things to 2025, I want 2 day 2 picks, conditional picks.
Yeah, I mean,
and if he has a 1,400-yard year for you, you get a pick back or something like that. Again, you put conditions on it.
Yeah, it's also a rough one to you're going to hand this guy to Harbaugh, and he's got Justin Herbert, and they only have the second-year kid out of TCU. They kissed off on Mike Williams, same on Keenan Allen. I don't know. I mean, I'd be nervous about sending him to the Chargers just because he could really help the Chargers, and they could get over the top and wind up in the Super Bowl, and then you're looking really bad.
New England Patriots and Pittsburgh Steelers are the last 2 teams here. The Patriots would get Ayuk in a 5th rounder for a 2024 second rounder, a 2024 4th rounder, and a 2025 second round pick from the Patriots. I think the Patriots got so much team building to do. They can't be giving away multiple second round picks over 2 drafts, right?
Well, there's another team. I mean, it's like hold these guys' feet to the fire and hold them over a barrel, and they have nothing. I mean, the Patriots have absolutely nothing. Now, you could look at it leverage-wise and say, well, the 49ers have, they're going to be paying their quarterback 50 times what they're paying him right now, most likely, and they probably can't afford, Ayuk. But look at, Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas. I mean, that's really it. The rest of they signed KJ Osborne, who's, whatever you think of him. But the only receivers I like there are Bourne and Douglas. I mean, they don't have a quarterback. I mean, I kind of wonder if you're Ayuk. I mean, if you somehow get involved in that trade, man, I mean, if you're all about winning, you're going to be in a rough spot. They're not going to win there for a while. I mean, they've got Jacoby Brissett at quarterback or a rookie, totally new coaching staff, defensive head coach. I don't know. I would say Ayuk, if Ayuk wants to win a ring, he better hope that deal doesn't go down.
Right. If I'm Brandon Ayuk's agent, I'm going to say let's take a lesser deal somewhere else to keep you in the conversation of about to go to a Super Bowl, then go to New England and maybe not be heard from in the postseason for a few years here. So,
yeah, I mean, if you said, when is New England likely to contend for a Super Bowl, I would say it's 3 to 5 years out.
Yeah, I would call it
that point. He's out of his prime, so he could be giving away any chance at winning a Super Bowl by being traded to New England.
Right. I think that the Patriots, how far away are they? They're a full football life cycle, which to me is always like 4 or 5 years. They're a full life cycle away from being a contender again. So
there was speculation about the Niners trading for Jabril Peppers. If Peppers is a decent free safety, if you could get him coming back as part of the deal and somehow sweeten it a little bit, maybe I'd be interested from the Niner perspective. But in some ways, I think that's almost like doing Ayuk wrong, man. I almost feel like you're sending him to, I know they used to be a dynasty not that long ago, but in some ways it's almost like, NFL Siberia.
Yeah, they've changed. No, the Patriots ain't who they used to be. These aren't your daddy's Patriots no more. That's what happens when you say goodbye to Bill Belichick and Tom Brady.
Right.
So maybe the best deal on the board, and the one that, Larry, might sound the best to you, and this is from Bleacher Report again, talking about possible trades teams could make for Brandon Ayuk, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And remember, this flirtation with the Pittsburgh Steelers is something that has already happened in the public space between Ayuk and Tomlin. So maybe there would be a desire to get a deal done there. The Steelers would get Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers 4th rounder, number 132, for this year's 1st rounder and a 3rd rounder. So Ayuk and pick 132 for 2 top 100 picks. You'd have number 20 and number 98 in this upcoming draft for Brandon Ayuk. Just from a return pick standpoint, that sounds the best to me.
You get the 20th pick, which you may be able to get J.C. Latham. You may be able to land, right. The LSU.
You didn't think you were going to get. The player that you thought would be off your board is probably there at 20.
Well, I mean, like some people that I've talked to, scouts wise, believe that Brian Thomas from LSU is going to be better than Brandon Ayuk, and you might be able to get Brian Thomas Jr. at 24 and just go straight replacement. That's interesting. And then when you look at the offensive tackles, I think Alt, Fuaga, Fashanu for sure are gone, but Latham, Troy Fatanu, who's an absolute drive blocking menace. He can play guard, tackle. He's really impressive. Your guy, Amarius Mims, Tyler Guyton. I mean, you could put yourself right on the board to maybe select any of those four guys at 20.
Larry,
So that's intriguing.
Let's get really imaginative here. If the 49ers were to do that deal for Pittsburgh, and now they've got 2 first rounders, you've got 20 and 31. Well, you can package 20 and 31 and get up into the top 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
if you want to, but I mean, the Niners may need numbers.
Right, but
I'll say this too. I've been doing the deep dive on the wide receivers. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Let's say that they decided like Joe Alt. This is the kid we want above, Joe Alt.
He's going 7th to the Titans.
All right. Well, maybe the Titans would flip you 2.
That'd be incredible.
Flip you the Joe Alt pick for 2 first rounders. The Titans aren't about to win a Super Bowl. They're still building. They're not a year away. So I don't know. Just
it's interesting. It's interesting. There was one more deal on Bleacher Report that I saw yesterday. I was seeing if I could find it. It was basically the Niners trading Ayuk to the Commanders for and I want to get this right if I can find it. But it was Ayuk to the Commanders. The Commanders would trade. They wouldn't trade their obviously the second pick in the draft, but they would trade their second round pick, which is like number 34 or 35. I mean, really high. It's like, obviously
right, one of the first picks of the second round.
Yeah, like the top second, one of the top 3 picks of the second round. And next year, and a pick in the second round, I believe, next year, and Jahan Dotson from Penn State. Now, Jahan Dotson's had 2 kind of underwhelming years, but man, Jahan Dotson has got a lot of talent. I mean, he's got really good ball skills. He can catch the ball in a crowd. I think he's gonna rebound and play better ball. Jahan Dotson with those ball skills, with Brock Purdy throwing him the ball, that's intriguing. And if you could get, I think it was like a 2nd and a 4th, and then like maybe a pick next year, that would be intriguing to me. Just because Dotson, at least, you've got a, let's see, here it is. I got to read it to you straight. Okay. It's Ayuk and a 6th round pick to the Commanders for number 36 overall, which would be their 2nd round pick, their 3rd round pick this year. So you're getting both 36 and 67 this year. There's no deferred, which I think is good for the Niners because they're in their Super Bowl window. They want talent now. They don't want talent in a year. So 2024 2nd, 2024 3rd, and Jahan Dotson. To me, that's intriguing, Damon, because, man, I mean, you're still talking about, 2 players basically right there at the end of the 1st round, top of the 2nd. You've got the ability to move that thing down a little bit if you wanted to accumulate more picks. You got a legit starting wide receiver who could plug in for Ayuk. I mean, nobody wants to really move Ayuk. Let's have that discussion first. Nobody wants to move him. He's great. He's 26. He's one of the best receivers in football. It's all about what can you afford? So there's that. The more I did the deep dive on the wide receiver class, there are some guys that are going to be day 3 picks at wide receiver. One of them is the Georgia kid, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, who's got really long arms. He's 6'2", he's 195. A lot of people like him. I saw Baldinger did a big thing on him. Rick Spielman did a big thing on him. He's really, really intriguing. But then if you even go further down the board, there are a lot of really exciting receivers. There's a guy named David White Jr. who, plays at Western Carolina, the Catamounts, I believe. And this guy, Damon,
The Western Carolina Catamounts.
Western Carolina Catamounts.
Let's go to the tape.
No,
I didn't get a lot of Catamount football out here on the West Coast this year, Larry. I'm unfamiliar with this player.
Okay, well, this was a player who started at Valdosta State and then transferred to the Western Carolina Catamounts.
I mean, that's a lateral move. You got to make it.
But man, Damon, he's 6'4", he's 200 pounds, and if you watch this kid set up and run routes, I mean, he's got elite route running ability, and he showed it off at the Hula Bowl and the East-West Shrine, and he just left people in his wake. I mean, it's the route running ability on this kid is really, really special.
How does that guy, if he is what you say he is, Larry, how does he end up where he ended up? If he's a physical specimen, beating SEC corners off the line, 6'4", but a catamount, what's wrong? I guess would be my question. He must be a blithering idiot. He must not know how to read a playbook or something. Like, how does a player like that end up there?
That's a great question. And you can spend a lot of time analyzing how did you get here, or you could just, I guarantee you, if we had this kid in for a podcast, I guarantee you there's a story. My mom was sick, or I didn't make grades, or, I was a late bloomer, or I didn't get serious until this happened, or whatever. But all I'm telling you is this
ran afoul of the law or something. I don't know.
There's something where, or maybe he's from a rural area and he wasn't scouted. I mean, there's really lots and lots of things.
Sure.
He's a Jacksonville, Florida kid. He went to Westside High School in Jacksonville. But man, if you watch this guy run routes and you can see him just leaving guys, I mean, it's impressive, because usually some of the small school guys sometimes have route running deficiency, and it takes time for them to kind of get up to speed. But I'm just saying, if you're the 49ers and you're saying, okay, we got this cap problem, we owe Brock Purdy $50 million contract, and we can't afford our wide receivers anymore, we're going to have to move Ayuk. You move Ayuk for a couple of picks, like the Commanders are in this trade are giving you their 2, and the Commanders have 5 picks in the top 50 or something like that, so they have the ability to give you 2 picks. They give you 2 picks in Jahan Dotson, and then you go in the draft and you unearth David White Jr. out of Western Carolina and Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint out of Georgia, and you show up this summer and you're like, wait a second, these guys look pretty damn good. Now they're rookies and there's going to be a developmental curve.
Right. And Kyle's going to hate them.
Kyle's going to hate them, and it's going to take some time. But you do have some real talented wide receivers, and you've got Jahan Dotson to start next to Debo and JJ. So, and you've saved tons of money. And you have 2 picks in the second and third round that you can utilize to build your team, and you could use day 3 picks to draft those replacement wide receivers. I'm just saying,
Larry, you've talked me into them. I'm burning 31, and I'm taking the catamount at 31.
Yeah. Could you imagine? 49ers take a guy that nobody's ever heard of, but I'm a regular watcher of the path to the draft, and they did a little breakdown on the kid from Western Carolina, and then I went and watched it, and just the highlight reels and one game of Western Carolina. I watched about 5 series, and this kid does have something that you never see, which is route running sophistication that you would never expect to see. I mean, he's got feet. He's got the ability.
All right. enough of this. I think the best point is actually made here in the chat by Malenik, who just says, look, talk about starting points all you want. The greatest wide receiver ever played at Mississippi Valley State. Number 2 played at Marshall. Number 3 was at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. Good points. All legitimate points. Great wide receiver talent can come from anywhere.
Where did he say? He said Mississippi Valley State. That's Rice.
Yep.
Then he said, obviously, Tennessee, Chattanooga. That's Owens.
Yep. And Marshall is Randy Moss.
Oh, Marshall. Yeah.
Right.
Randy Moss.
Now, Randy Moss got to Marshall because he was like,
kicked out of Florida State, Notre Dame.
Goodbye, Florida State, Notre Dame. He was a troubled, he was a bad boy. And then, and then he was a bad man on the football field.
But I mean, it's time, here's the thing. Some people look at these small school guys and go, oh, major risk. In reality, if you are a small school guy that gets to, a couple weeks before the draft and you're on the radar, in some ways you're more legitimate than the guy from LSU, the guy from Georgia, the guy from Florida, because annually their top guys wind up getting drafted. But it's like you're not getting drafted out of Western Carolina unless you're damn good. Nobody's taking you out of Mississippi Valley State unless you're legit. So in some ways, the small school guys and Buffalo, you think of Buffalo in the 80s with Marv Levy, they kicked butt with small school guys and got to 4 Super Bowls. Didn't win any of them, but got to 4.
Welcome to Wake Up. Hit like and subscribe. Talking an awful lot about George Kittle. Hey, diddle-diddle. We talked an awful lot about possible trades for Brandon Ayuk, what it could return. Let's talk about the player who was added this week, Larry. Running back Patrick Taylor signed from the Green Bay Packers. He's 25 years old. He spent his last 4 years in Green Bay, an undrafted player. He is the biggest of all current 49er running backs. He's 6'2", 217, and he is, a camp body at running back, but with the new hybrid kickoffs and his experience on special teams, could actually end up on this roster. The Packers had him play a total of 276 special teams snaps, 122 coming in 2022 and 109 coming just last year. He's from the University of Memphis. He was buried in a talented backfield at the University of Memphis. And when he came back for his senior year, he had a Liz Frank. So his numbers were not nearly as impressive in his senior year. And he got buried on a team that featured Tony Pollard, Darrell Henderson, Kenneth Gainwell, and Antonio Gibson. That was a hell of a Memphis Tigers running back room. So he got buried. He then got hurt. He goes undrafted. He's fighting for his own reputation in Green Bay as a special teamer. But again, the price of special team play just goes up with this new hybrid kickoff that the NFL is going to be introducing this year. So Patrick Taylor might not just be that camp running back that we assumed he was signed to be. He could be an important part of this team's special teams.
I'm going to know more about this next Wednesday when I go down there for the local pro day and I get a chance to talk to some of the people down there and some of the Niner scouts that I know and some of the people. But I mean, there's a lot of speculation. I mean, I really don't. I'll honestly say, I will tell you when I know, and I will tell you when I don't know, and I don't know about Patrick Taylor Jr. But Dave Lombardi did tweet this out. He said, new 49er running back Patrick Taylor Jr. has some really good pass blocking reps on tape. Such a uniquely large build at 6'2". He's the tallest running back in the Shanahan era. That and some promise in the receiving game, which I don't know if I would call it promise because there's only 11 catches there. But he's got 124 snaps on special teams. Could earn him a spot on the 53. The other thing I think you got to think about is the Niners don't really have anybody on the roster that even could be categorized as a backup fullback. Is it possible that Patrick Taylor, the Niners see him as an athletic backup fullback? That I kind of wonder about as well. So, I'll say this: the guy's yoked. I mean, if you look at him, he's rocked up. If he's one of those guys that looks good coming off the bus. But he never was the bell cow back, as you kind of spelled that out, Damon, at Memphis. he always kind of shared time. So, I mean, obviously he's not going to be the bell cow back here.
Right.
But obviously the 49ers like something about him. And I'd love to know exactly what traits he possesses that they really like, or what they kind of envision for him as far as a roster spot. Because I don't see him getting in front of any of the other runners, to be honest. I don't really think he's a camp body. I think there's maybe a chance that they look at him as maybe a receiving fullback, maybe a backup to Juice. I'm not really sure.
Again, we'll tell you what we do know, what we don't know much about him. Let's all find out together. We've got a new running back in a running back room that didn't even use the running backs in the room last year. So maybe there's a different philosophy that we'll see in 2024, how to divvy up these carries and take a little workload off of Christian McCaffrey without missing much production. Josh Dobbs, who is the 49ers' new backup quarterback, was on the Adam Schefter podcast, Larry.
Yeah.
And he was talking a little bit about why he really wanted to get to the 49ers. And you can listen to what he's saying, or you can just go back and look at the journey that brought him to the 49ers. I think both are reasons why he wanted to be here. He said, when free agency came about, the opportunities were presented to me. And the thing that I wanted, what I said was the most important, was to get to a place with a consistent front office, a consistent coaching staff that does a really good job at quarterback development. I've had it. I want an opportunity to go through a full offseason in one scheme, get there in April. And even though I'm still learning, I'm going to learn this new offense, but it's an offense that has been very prominent around the league. In other words, you go learn how to do it in San Francisco. That is a translatable skill to an awful lot of the copycat offenses that are running Kyle's scheme. And then he goes on to say, I'll get there in April. I'll be around some tremendous coaches. I'm going to learn the offense from the bare bones of it. I'm going to throw routes on air. I'm going to build those interpersonal opportunities with teammates, and then go into the season and be ready for whatever that role looks like. He is a big fan of Brock. He's obviously very impressed that Brock has come up, short in 2 Super Bowl runs here. And you don't do that from a place where Brock was drafted without excellent teammates and coaching. And I think Dobbs just looks at the 49ers culture, sees a level of success and stability, and is just like, man, give me a year of that. Give me 1 year of same team, same offense, competent coaching, good teammates, and let me see what I can develop into, either as the guy who comes in and saves the bacon for the Niners, as their QB2, or someone who plays themselves back into the realm of you could be a starter in this league, which Sam Darnold gets the opportunity to do without even being impressive for a singular day of football. So it just feels like if you shake Kyle Shanahan's hand as a quarterback, other teams are going to look at you differently.
Well, Dobbs is smart, and he's really smart, as we know, aeronautical engineering or whatever it is that his major was. And he's a really smart guy, and he's athletic, and he's been around the league, and he's gotten a chance. I'm sure when you're not playing, you're like, hey, I just want to play. Where can I play? And then he's gotten a chance to play in Tennessee, in Minnesota, in Arizona. And now he's looking around going, well, wait a second. My body's kind of beat up. I've put out some good film. I've put out some really, really bad film. And have I done a great thing for myself? So now he's looking at it going, well, how can I increase my value? And I can increase my value by going to a place where there's stability. I mean, I think, believe me, if he didn't notice, I guarantee his agent noticed, hey, Sam Darnold went there. He signed for 5 and left for 10. You know what I mean? And he played 1 game. And you can be better than Sam Darnold. And you could, sign for X and then leave for Y at some point. I think a lot of the things you said are spot on. I mean, I think that's what he's looking for. He mentioned he wanted a solid front office. That box is checked. Niners have a solid front office. He said they wanted a solid coaching staff. There's lots of Niner coaches that are picked off to be offensive coordinators in other places. He wanted to be developed as a quarterback. He wanted to play in a system that was quarterback friendly. And Kyle's system is that. He wanted to be in a system that's utilized around the NFL. The Niners system is in Miami in some degree. It's in Houston in some degree. It's in Tennessee in some degree. And there's probably a handful of other places around the league that really kind of use the Shanahan system. So if you want to make yourself valuable, learn that system, show that you can operate it efficiently, and suddenly you might have 5 or 6 teams that are showing interest, and there may be a bidding war for you next year. And if you play any kind of extended good football, you may get a bonanza bidding war. But then I think the most interesting part was what he said about Purdy, was that, he just admires Purdy for his decision making and for his, ability to take care of the football and for his overall efficient play. And I just think that he feels like, hey, if I'm around this guy who's playing efficiently, not turning it over, running this system, making good decisions, I'm in a great system that's being utilized around the league. All these things, and I'm probably going to be on a winning team. I might win a ring along the way. I think, if you're smart, man, and he is, and he's looking at this thing really intelligently and thinking not just about the future, he's thinking about kind of almost like going back to college. Like, where can I go to give myself more skills so that I'm more valuable to other teams around the NFL?
Hey, we say it all the time, man. Your career will be dictated by the talent you have in the situation you're in. Dobbs has a level of talent that has been better than basically any situation he's been in. And so, there's a guy in the chat named Psych saying quarterback development, my butt. Okay, look, you can criticize Kyle Shanahan for losing Super Bowls or whatever you want. But when it comes to criticizing Kyle Shanahan for not developing quarterbacks, you sound like you're just not watching the football team at all. Like, there's only been one quarterback that Kyle has ever coached who might not be able to play in football, and his name is Trey Lance. That's it. Nick Mullins got contracts. C.J. Beathard got contracts. The last pick in the draft just was in the Super Bowl. Kyle looked at Matt Ryan, shook his hand. Matt Ryan had the single greatest year of his career and has never been as good since Kyle left. Like, Kyle Shanahan does develop quarterbacks. I don't care what angry content creator talked you into the fact he doesn't know what he's doing. At that point, he does. Okay?
Well, and it's more than, what helps a quarterback develop? A surrounding cast. Look at the weapons that Brock Purdy was surrounded by. People made these arguments that Brock wasn't Brock because he's just a product of the weapons. And then suddenly when he plays well, it's like we forget that he had these weapons. Josh Dobbs, if Purdy has a hamstring and can't play in week 5, and the Niners go out there with what they have right now, it's Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey. You know what I'm saying? Those are pretty good weapons. That's pretty, not to mention there's organizational stability. I hear what the person's saying as far as, Shanahan developing. Did he develop? Is he a developer of quarterbacks or is he a play caller? But ultimately, what we're talking about and what Dobbs is talking about is he wants to go somewhere where there's organizational stability. There's an offense that if he takes the time to learn it, there may be a residual benefit from having done so because other teams use that offense and they may need a quarterback. And you're surrounded by a nice group of players that can help you. You can't do it alone. You got to have some good players. So I do understand the person, though, who says Kyle's not the great developer of quarterbacks. I don't think Kyle's genius is in quarterback development. I think his genius is in play calling, play sequencing, play designing,
offensive polish. Whatever you want to call it.
Identifying the conflict defender, identifying weaknesses, and ruthlessly going at them. I think that's really more his thing than quarterback development. But let's not pretend that Sam Darnold didn't just double his salary and looked really good. Sam Darnold sure looked good in the preseason. In one game with the Niners, he looked better than he did at Carolina. He looked way, way better than he did with the Jets. So who are you attributing that to?
Dude, look at what Jimmy G was. With Kyle, he was a pretty darn good quarterback. Without Kyle, he is a non-functional, borderline out of the league, I know he signed
He's a
on
backup.
with the Rams. Yeah, he's a definitive backup. He was being looked at as, he played so well for Kyle, he became the highest paid quarterback in the history of football there for just a minute.
He got a starting job in Minnesota, and he's making $10 million a year.
Well, you're talking about Darnold now.
I don't love Sam Darnold. Nick Nice or whatever says, "Oh my God, Larry!" All caps. Here we go. "Oh my God, Larry! You said yourself at camp last year Sam was horrible." Sam was. I thought Trey Lance outplayed Sam, but here's the bottom line on it: Sam looked better than Trey in the preseason games, probably as far as moving the team. He definitely didn't have a game where Trey did, where he looked kind of skittish. All I'm saying is go look at Sam Darnold with the Jets. Go look at Sam Darnold's final game with the Panthers. And then go look at Sam Darnold's game that he played at the end of the year with the Niners. He looked quite a bit better. Now, why did he look better? He looked better because he was buffered by a better offense, a better play caller, more talent. And Dobbs is looking at this going, give me some of that. Give me some of that. And I think Dobbs is really smart, because I think Dobbs also understands that, if you can master this offense and there's 10 teams or 7 teams or 8 teams that are running this offense, then even if it doesn't work out here, let's say Brock Purdy plays every single game, you never get on the field. So what? You spent a year learning an offense that's pretty prevalent around the NFL, and that's going to help you succeed in your next stop. And he's a relatively young player, so I think he's taking a very realistic view of where he's at career-wise, and we'll see how it works.
So if you do want us to rip Kyle Shanahan, stay tuned for the final segment, because we'll do just that. Actually, it's not us doing it. It's someone who is a football guru who is doing it. So some Kyle Shanahan rippage is coming up, just for those of you who need it. Yes, a little bit. But one last thing about Dobbs, and it's the journey that has brought him to the 49ers that makes the 49ers just look so good to him. He spends his first year of his career in Pittsburgh with the Steelers. He gets traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars, but he never plays for the Jaguars. The Jaguars waived him. He re-signs with the Steelers. They say goodbye. He signs with the Browns. Then he gets waived by them. He goes on to sign with the Detroit Lions practice squad, gets waived by them. Then he gets signed by the Titans for a brief stint, makes 2 short starts. Then it's back to the Browns, followed by a trade to the Arizona Cardinals, where he finally gets a chance to start for an extended stretch. He looked pretty well. Good. Yeah, he looked pretty good enough to where now he's being traded to the Minnesota Vikings because Kyler Murray's coming back. And then he started there and had a little bit of success, and then ends up getting benched for it went to Nick Mullins after that, right? And that was a mess.
Played one of the worst Monday night games I think I've ever seen in my life.
It wasn't good. And all I can tell you is
not good.
Josh Dobbs is looking for something that is steady. And as critiquey as you want to get about the 49ers, they're steady. They're steady. The Niners are in the mix of winning football teams for multiple years in a row now. That's steady. And I think Josh is just looking for a steady organization. I hope he finds it. And there's a very good chance that he might bust out and Brandon Allen is the number 2 quarterback behind Purdy anyways. We don't know. We don't know right now, but I think he's put himself in the right situation.
And that's another thing too. There's a clear delineation of the hierarchy here. He's the clear 2. Brock's the clear 1. Allen's the clear 3. So I think that works for the Niners, but I think it also is nice for Dobbs. So we'll see. I mean, Dobbs has had some, and the other one is maybe not. We shouldn't undersell this either. One of Dobbs's best receivers was JJ. JJ's thrilled that Dobbs is there. So, both these guys played at Tennessee. Maybe that had something to do with it. Just the fact that Juwan Jennings is here. But I think it's a smart move by Dobbs for sure.
It was not a smart move to take that ball first in an overtime of the Super Bowl. And that's how we're going to end today's show here, Larry. Bill Belichick's numbers guru, Ernie Adams, was on Julian Edelman's podcast, and Ernie does not talk much.
No, he never
talks. This guy is, Bill Belichick's Mr. Numbers Fixer, basically. He is the
this is the brains behind this is the the guy in the back room crunching numbers. This is the Paul DePodesta to Billy Bean.
He is the Farhan of no, I'm just kidding. So talking about the 49ers electing to take the kickoff in overtime of the Super Bowl, he tells Edelman, this is Ernie Adams, Bill Belichick's numbers guy. The text I sent Bill right then is this is the first time in National Football League history where the right call for the winning the coin toss is we want to kick. We want to kick. We want to go on defense first. The big reason is you need and you know that you're in 4-down territory all the way, because if it comes up to 4th down and you're going for it, it affects how you call 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down. If it's never a punting situation, your entire game plan is going to unfold differently. These are all the things that we said immediately following the Super Bowl. All of these points are points that Shanahan tried to imagine weren't as important as that magical 3rd possession should both teams trade equal scores. And he's right. Again, look, he's right. We saw it in real time. He's had a little time to talk about it, think about it, and he goes on Edelman's podcast and just said, yeah, Kyle can defend his position all he wants. He was wrong. And history proved him wrong. So there you go.
Well,
if you wanted us to bash Kyle Shanahan, congratulations. Yeah. We did.
I don't know if history, it didn't work out. Like, you can make the wrong call and win the game. You can make the right call and lose the game.
Right.
He made the wrong call and lost the game.
My whole point is Kyle is so committed to the fact that he did it the right way. I promise you, if they're in the the overtime of the next Super Bowl, he'll be kicking. I promise you he wouldn't play it the same way, knowing what he knows now.
I know. No, I don't think there's any real defense of it. Now, I understand what Kyle was saying, but the same thing that Kyle was the argument, it's like this. It reminds me of high school math. You got the right answer, Larry, but you didn't show your work.
Didn't prove it.
You got to show your work. If you don't show your work, it's not just okay to get the right answer. You have to get the right answer with the right process. The right process was if Kyle had said, hey, my defense was gassed, I didn't want to put them out there right then, that's a defensible position for why he did what he did. But that's not what he said.
Right.
He said, we wanted to have it 3rd. And it's like, it was obvious. We have video footage of Juszczyk and Armstead going, I didn't know that rule. We didn't talk about that. So that's the incriminating part. And then, of course, that also came back on him 24 hours later, where Juice said, I didn't know anything about it. The next day, he was like, well, we knew. We had discussed it, this and that. You know what I mean? So obviously there was the cover-up. But yeah.
Right. And then you had Andy Reid working on it on training camp. They were talking about it in training camp, the new overtime rule that would apply to the Super Bowl. So
Dave Taub, who's maybe the best special team coach in the last 20 years, was saying, to his guys, the Chief players, we got what we wanted. We lost the coin toss, but we got what we wanted. That's it right there. The question is, we wanted to know we could win it. Well, you could win it with a 2-point conversion, even if, so the assumption, it's like it kind of gives us a glimpse into the Niners' view of 2-point conversions also, right? Like, they view 2-point conversions as like, very unlikely. We're not going to try it. Like, they're going to go score a touchdown. Then, or we're going to go score a touchdown. Then they're going to go score a touchdown. We're going to kick a PAT. Then they're going to kick a PAT. And then we are going to get the ball. But there's 5 different things that can interrupt that.
Right.
And it was illogical. And unfortunately, they lost the game, but you're right. They had the wrong approach. And this one was incriminating. And this, and this is the thing for Kyle. I love Kyle. I think Kyle, I'm more of a fan of Kyle than most of these 49er content creators. They think he's an idiot. I don't think he's an idiot. I think if the Niners fired him tomorrow, there'd be like 7 teams around the league that would seriously have emergency meetings. Should we fire our guy and go for Kyle? There'd be like 3 different college coaches that would get dumped. Should we fire our head coach and go for Kyle? So this like Kyle's a bonehead. Kyle doesn't know. No, stop. You're an idiot for saying it. He's a good coach, but you can make a very compelling argument that he is starting to have a series of times where he's shooting himself in the foot under pressure in big games. And it's got to end. It's got to end. Now, I don't know how it's going to end, but it's got to end. And I understand where people are coming from. I still think you're talking about, let's not forget what you had. You had Chip Kelly. You had Tom Sula. Kyle's offense produces roughly 30 points a game. He's gone to the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Brock Purdy's really good, but I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is very good. And he went to the Super Bowl with both of them and almost won. So, this Kyle's no good. Kyle doesn't know. I'm in that room looking at these players face to face every week. If there were an inkling of, you know what, we don't believe, I would know about it. I would sense it. Somebody would whisper something in the corner of the room. It's like Bill Parcells when he spoke and he talked about the locker room and how, there's dark corners of the room and there's doubt and there's people, there's distrust and there's all kinds of darkness in the locker room.
The whisper campaign would have reached us if there were an internal whisper campaign about him not being the right guy.
These guys believe in Kyle Shanahan at a degree that I don't think the fans or the media really grasp. The players are all in on Kyle Shanahan, all in, not part way in, all in. So there you go. That's my thought. I think Shanahan, but I do understand the frustration of the people that rip him because they're like, man, this guy can't get it done. And man, the Atlanta game, some of the questioning, some of the calls, and the Debo touches the ball twice in the second half. After he was like the MVP of Super Bowl 54 in the first half, he was the betting favorite to win the MVP at halftime. He touched the ball twice in the second half. That's I can't get beyond that. And then this last game, with this rule, and with the handling of this, and also not just the handling of this, I thought on the 3rd and 4, it demanded them to run on third and 4 and maybe get it. And if you don't get it, you run again on 4th down and keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands. You know what I mean? At the end of regulation, I would have liked to have seen that. And I just didn't feel like they understood or really had a great plan there. So, the inability to call the challenge on Devontae Smith's reception in the Eagle game. I'm not going to question the Tyler Kroft block because I don't think that's valid. But you had multiple indications, Damon. You had Hufanga going, saying incomplete. You had, Jalen Hurts in the Philly offense sprinting up the field.
Run the next play.
Run the play. And Kyle didn't call the challenge just because it was too early in the game in his mind. It was vital. It was a vital mistake. So, I'm willing, to say, hey, you know what? He's a really good coach who's made some bad decisions in some big games, but I really believe that Shanahan is easily the best coach the 49ers could have today. Like, if they fired him today, I don't think they could get a coach anywhere close to as good as he is. Do you?
Bill Belichick. He's out there, so you go get that guy. But that would be it. I mean, that would, in order to do better than Kyle, you have to have the guy who's got the most robust trophy case in the history of coaching football. So, look, anyone who wants to make an argument or plant their entire career in the flag that is Kyle's not good at this is just showing what you don't know about the team that you claim to be covering closely. It's a blind spot. I mean, you think Kyle's got a blind spot? You can't even recognize a good coach that you cover. That's pretty much a blind spot too.
I would love it if he had a Brad Seeley, because, now Jim Harbaugh lost his ass on the sidelines in many games and got so overwhelmed with emotion that he really almost had to waste timeouts. And, Harbaugh did not keep it together on the sidelines, but he did have Brad Seeley. And Seeley is a respected guy who knows every rule, special teams, great coach, but a phenomenal, kind of sideline confidant, bench coach. I mean, I don't look at it as an insult. I mean, Joe Torre had Don Zimmer. Baseball managers know the game cold, but they still really, really, really value their bench coach.
Right. Bochy had Wotus and Flannery.
Right. And a bench coach can be, there's Kyle wears a lot of hats, man. He's the offensive coordinator. He's the head coach. He's dabbling in, on the defensive headsets and questioning that. He's involved in personnel and all these different things.
He's the general manager.
He's the final word on everything. And it's like, all I would say is maybe a really high quality bench coach. And maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of odd to say it, but maybe the guy from the Chargers who went for it all the time on fourth down.
Maybe Brandon Staley is that guy. Maybe he's better suited to be the consigliere more than he is the Godfather.
Maybe. I mean, I'm eager to see what assistant head coach role. What's his role? What does he do?
What does that mean? We still don't know exactly what that means, and we won't until we get into the season.
And is it dual defensive coordinators? No. You're going to give Sorensen the final say. So is he going to question Sorensen? I doubt it. Is he just going to be on the headsets there, kind of, listening in? I don't know. It'll be interesting if the Niners are going for it on fourth down, left and right, all because of Brandon Staley.
No punter. They don't even carry a punter on the roster. That's how aggressive they're going to get on special teams, Larry.
They're just going to go for it. By the way, we have a somewhat big story brewing here at the end of the stream. If we
is it opening day for the Giants? No, that's not a big story.
No. Well, I'm going to watch that today, though. I do love opening day, and I'll be doing a little post game with the great Dan Coach Emilio after the game's over. And you know what? I went to the Marty's dinner last night at Original Joe's in North Beach and sat down and broke bread with a lot of Giants fans, and the great Greg Papa was in the house. And
did you get an invite from Marty? I didn't. Marty didn't. My phone didn't ring.
Well, he asked me several months ago. Okay. He asked me several months ago, would I be interested? And I said, I said I was going to go in the past, and I've never gone. And then it just worked out last night that, that I could make it. And it was really an enjoyable night. And, the Giants are challenged, but they're not that far away. The Giants are more like it's a big bat, but they're one big bat offensively away from being kind of a scary team.
Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani.
Well, no, but the Giants could get to October and they could wind up with Logan Webb in game 1, Blake Snell in game 2, former Cy Young Award winner Robbie Ray in game 3. And if they could get in as a wild card with no pressure, add one more bat in the outfield, we'll see. We'll see.
Kyle Harrison figures it out. You got a legit closer.
Think of it this way. You add Robbie Ray and Alex Cobb at the middle of the year to the rotation. That kicks Keaton Wynn and Jordan Hicks to the pen. You give the Giants pen Jordan Hicks and Keaton Wynn in front of Doval, and you've got an ability to make it a 7-inning game. And, I don't know. My big question is about the legitimacy of Jung Hoo as far as a leadoff hitter, a dynamic player. We'll see. We'll see what it is. They're already kind of anointing him a star. Let's just wait. Let's wait. Let's give it until.
Let's give him 250 major league at bats before we claim to know what he's about to do.
Let's go June. It's April 5th. Let's wait till June 5th. How about that? If on June 5th, if he's hitting 280 or more and playing the hell out of center field, I'm with you. If if on June 5th he's hitting 258, then maybe I was right, and 19 million a year was a little too pricey for that signing. But that's not what I was referring to. There's 49er news of note.
Ooh, what do you got?
All right. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
Should we go to the starred chats first? Should we do our
No, you've teased me. You got to give it to me.
I've shown you a little leg. Now you need to get it. Does anybody in the chat know what I'm talking about? Let's see.
Like and subscribe, Larry. You're teasing the hell out of me.
This is exciting. I mean, this truly would be exciting. Okay. This is a CBS Sports story. I don't know how credible CBS Sports is, but Arizona Cardinals safety Budda Baker, they're talking about trade talks for Budda Baker, and the Bills, Colts, and Niners are listed as the suitors for Budda Baker. I love me some Budda Baker.
He's good.
I mean, I have been a huge fan of Budda Baker. George Kittle, I asked him when the Niners played the Cardinals about Budda Baker, and he's like, oh, I love going up against Budda Baker and this and that. The Niners need another safety. They need a veteran safety. We've talked about Julian Blackmon. He re-signed with the Colts. We talked about Justin Simmons. He's out there. We've talked about different guys. Budda Baker is out there. Arizona's GM is Monty Ossenfort. And there's talk that the Cardinals are going to trade Budda Baker. And to me, this is an impact guy. I mean, I would have loved to have seen the Niners get C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but you know how C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Debo mix. That's oil and water, right? Those guys.
I mean, right until you become teammates, and then all of a sudden you're Draymond Green and Chris Paul, right? So
that is true. But Budda Baker is just a really, really special guy, and I've always loved him. He's only 28. He's a West Coast guy, Bellevue, Washington, University of Washington, second-round pick by the Cardinals in 2017, two-time All-Pro. We're talking about an All-Pro safety.
Yeah, he's in the small handful of who's great at that position.
He's awesome. I mean, he is a really, really good player.
So let's get back to
what do you think of that?
Let's get back to the proposed Bleacher Report Brandon Ayuk Arizona Cardinal trade that we were talking about earlier in the show. Brandon Ayuk and a 2024 fourth rounder, which is pick number 135, to the Cardinals for a round 1 pick and a 2024 round 5 pick. How about this? Brandon Ayuk, no fourth rounder for your second or third round pick and Budda Baker.
Yeah. I mean, I would consider it. I would literally consider it. I'll say this too. Budda Baker's a free safety. The Niners, if you ask me, Hafanga's, I think, strictly a strong safety. And the more I watch Jair Brown, the more I think, he's kind of like Tayshaun Gibson in that he's a productive interceptor, but he's better as a strong safety. I really think that both Jair and Hufanga are kind of both strong safeties. And the Niners could really use some impact guys on the back end. And Budda is that guy. And if you could get Budda, man, he's had probably some injuries, I guess, the last couple of years. He's been a little dinged. But, man, this guy plays for keeps.
Look, in division probably means it's less likely to happen than other teams, but interesting. It is interesting for sure. By the way, Chudley 716 says, so I'm reporting that Buffalo is out on Baker, and just like Bleacher Report, I'm here in my basement. Well, hey, I'm in my basement, so look out. You can get some good information coming out of basements these days, I hear. Larry is in his garage, not his basement, but it's close.
There is no basement here. But we do have the studio all set up. I always love that. What do you know? You're in your garage. Does it really matter if I'm in my kitchen table, my garage, my basement, my attic, on my rooftop? Does it really matter at the end of the day? Not really. But anyway, but yeah, I don't know what the compensation would be. I don't know how it would go, but man, that would be the kind of player that, man, I would love to see.
By
I
the
would
way,
love to see Buda
a
Baker.
member of the Plouse, JJ Rader, and our weed benefactor, JJ Rader ganja jar right there. He says, Larry, tell Damon about Dan's sandwich condiment. What's Coach Emilio put on his sandwiches? What is he talking about?
You know what? I don't even remember. I know we talked about that the other night, but I don't remember. What is Dan's sandwich condiment? Can you reveal it, JJ?
I have no idea. I was not watching that episode.
I don't remember, Dan. There were so many people on the stream. I think it was Ned Coletti there where that night. I don't remember what Dan's
JJ Rader, though, that's for sure.
But I'd love to know. What could it possibly be?
I don't know. I mean, it must be something
Sriracha,
very left of center.
honey? JJ, we need to know before we get out of here.
I mean, I don't know if we need to know.
I need to know.
Maybe this is where you open and forget about the box score. When you join Dan today doing Giants Post, you just come right in with, what's your condiment?
Maybe I should just ask Danny right now.
Somebody said pickled relish.
No.
Is that it? No. I like pickles on a sandwich.
Dan, what was your odd sandwich condiment?
What I know is when I used to work with Rado would sometimes bring a sandwich in from home, and his sandwiches looked like the kind of hoagies that you would see in comic strips. Like it was one big loaf of bread, salami, mustard, and like just enough lettuce to stick out of the side of it, maybe if there was even lettuce on it. But it looked like it looked like the kind of sandwich that you would see in a Sunday morning comic strip. And there was Ray just crushing a huge sandwich.
Do you ever go to Subway?
No, I would not eat at Subway if you were buying.
Really?
Just the worst possible lunch to be bought. It's awful.
Not my favorite.
That's not real meat. That's not real bread. Everything about this is inferior. I only eat my sandwiches from Ike's, Larry.
Right. And Ike's, let's be honest. Ike's has some amazing, whatever you want to call it, gravy or
the Godfather sauce. Oh,
the different sauces.
Yes.
Kev always goes with Southwest Chipotle sauce.
Okay.
I never go mayo. I can't go mayo. I only go mustard. They don't do spicy mustard anymore at Subway. They only go yellow mustard. Usually if I do go Subway, I'll go, like turkey bacon with lettuce, tomato.
You mean turkey and bacon. You don't mean turkey bacon.
Turkey and bacon.
Okay.
Yeah. Turkey and bacon.
My bacon must be a pork product at all times. I reject any premise of turkey bacon.
Yeah, well, I reject any premise of like, trying to have the real thing but have the artificial. Like, Coke One or something like that.
This is why I never understood, like, when they just opened up Levi's Stadium, they advertised the fact that they were the home of the vegan hot dog more than they advertised the fact that they were the home of the 49ers. Like, the first thing you saw when you walked in there was in big metal letters, vegan hot dogs. So if you are a vegetarian, why would you ever want to eat anything in hot dog form, even a vegan product?
Can I say one thing also about hot dogs?
The grossest thing in the world to a vegetarian?
If I'm at your house or my house or anybody's house and they say, hey, we're having hot dogs, I'm not interested. But if I go to a baseball game and someone says, hey, I'm going to get a hot dog, I'm like, oh, okay, great. I want one. I want a hot dog at a baseball game. I don't want a hot dog for dinner. I don't want a hot dog at a basketball game. I don't want a hot dog. I don't want a hot dog except when I'm at a baseball game.
It's a venue-driven food item, right?
And it's not good for you. You know what's in hot dogs are terrible. There's so much sodium and So it's like one of the worst things you could ever do for yourself is eat a hot dog.
I will
But
say
there's
this,
something good about a Polish or a hot dog at like a Giants game, as opposed to, we're having hot dogs for dinner. Really?
I
I think I'll make a tuna salad or something. I'll have anything but a hot dog.
I like a Sheboygan. I like a kielbasa.
What's a Sheboygan
style? A Sheboygan is it's a cross between a hot dog and a bratwurst or a knockwurst.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll tell you, Guerra's has really good hot dogs. Really good hot dogs.
Where?
Guerra's over on 14th and Taraval. It's a butcher shop.
Okay.
So it's like, it's as good as a hot dog can get. It's still all lips and assholes, but it's quality lips and assholes. So, there you go.
But I was going to say, you know what I'll do? I'll go, if I go turkey, bacon, lettuce, tomato, red onion, salt and pepper. And then I'll say, can you give me just a little bit of vinegar off the top?
A little oil and vinegar. Yeah.
A little red vinegar off the top.
Absolutely.
It's almost like salad.
I'm impressed by this order, Larry. We don't talk enough about food here on the show, and I'm very impressed by this order.
And I will go avocado.
I'm very, very much committed to not eating hot dogs myself. I believe in 2% body fat, the same way I believe in 1 ACL is all you need to draft a productive player. As a matter of fact, I've got the entire Jaguars front office scanning the tape for the most brutal college injury we can find, and that's a player I'm going to target for day 3.
I've got a very flat stomach. I've told Damon this. I've told Lowry this many times. I don't do a lot of sit-ups. I'm not Robert Saleh, okay? I won't run the steps, but I got a flat stomach. And why is that, Damon? Why is that, Lowry? I don't eat a lot of hot dogs. The Razor said, "Come out to Marin. Let's have a hot dog."
He said, "Come out here, come on, Trent. You're gonna come out here. You can have a dog. You can go with the lettuce wrap around it. You don't have to go with the bun. You don't need, the bun sometimes is not always good for you."
And I told him, I said, "Ralph, I don't eat hot dogs. I don't care if it's Marin. I don't care if it's Jacksonville, East Coast, West Coast, North, South. I don't eat hot dogs, but I got a very flat stomach."
I told Tom, I told Tony that he's coming over for hot dogs. I don't think he likes hot dogs. Maybe we should get some Amici's, get a little minestrone. That's a vegetarian option that Trent might like. He's got that nice flat stomach. He's not going to do the stairs like Salah. So, we'll fit all that we can in the back of the Miata and see what he wants.
That's you, Ralph. You'll go pizza. And I'm looking at your gut. You know what? It could do a little better. Maybe stop with the pizza, Ralph, and come join me for a rap, and I'm not talking about rap music as you and Tate and Tom and, Damon and Lowry might listen to. I'm talking about like a lettuce wrap, and it gives you more of a flat stomach, and if you're Trent Baalke, who's a football guy, you got to have a football kind of a meal. You know what I'm saying, Ralph? And that's what a football guy like me does. And I know you're big on your pizza, and that's great for you.
Trent, pizza's not all that bad. It's not unhealthy. Some of the new ones are fresh. There's Gouda. They put stuff on it. There's all kinds of fresh toppings. It doesn't have to be bad.
No, I get it, Ralph. It doesn't necessarily have to be bad for you, but as a rule, pizza's not health food, and I'm a football guy, and so I don't eat non-healthy stuff.
Why wouldn't you like and subscribe to this? Genius. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Yes, thanks to everybody. Thanks to everybody who liked and subscribed. Thanks to people who did super chats. Thanks to Trent. Thanks to Ralph. Thanks to Damon. Thanks to all of you, and thanks for tuning in to Wake Up.